Hello, and welcome back to another Thoughts Off the Top type of video. I just want to quickly talk a little bit about the new Pokemon movie, which is a remake of the very first Pokemon movie. It's a Netflix original film, and as such, I'm not going to go through the story and do a typical review of the actual events of the movie. If you haven't seen it, spoilers, I guess, throughout. The first Pokemon movie, made in 1998, was sort of a story about the creation of Mewtwo and the legend of Mew, back when there was only the one generation of Pokemon, and Team Rocket wanted Pikachu, and life was easy. But they've remade it now in 3D, and I was, as this was announced and talked about, I was curious, because if this is the first video of mine that you see, welcome, hello. I am an editor, and also I have a background and an education in 3D modeling, animation, and visualization in general. So I was curious how they're going to do the 3D adaptation of an anime movie. Traditionally, I don't really like 3D in the anime style. I find that it sort of takes away what I personally think that anime does so well, which is the having a character go from a key pose to a key pose in one frame, and also the changing of facial expressions or characters in general to become like a chibi version or a simplified version, or, you know, the typical anime stuff when someone is embarrassed or sad or whatever, just sort of really symbolize the emotion you're trying to convey. And usually I find that is lacking if you do 3D anime, because you're sort of restrained to the limitations of the character rig and the character model that you have at your disposal as an animator. Now, I don't think traditionally Pokemon has been extremely excessive in this. It's not One Punch Man or Full Metal Alchemist or something like that, where they kind of heavily utilize that type of animation to convey emotion and feelings. But I still found it lacking in this 3D adaptation. I didn't dislike it. I think it serves a purpose. If you haven't seen the very first Pokemon movie and you're still curious about it, I think it appeals to children, which is probably the point. I just find it much like with the Sonic movie, when you have an established fan base that is, well, by now, you know, 20-ish, mid-20s, 30s, because it's been around for so long, it behooves you as a studio to appeal to the original fan base. But I know that I'm not saying that you have to. I just say that obviously I would like that because I'm of that era. So anyway, first of all, I want to point out that visually, as you can see right here, the rendering quality of the animation and the shading in general looks really good. Like, look at the skin shading of Mewtwo here, and the lighting in general. I think they really nailed that. The anime style hair kind of swoopiness looks really good. I love this psychic glow that almost looks like a smoke on around Mewtwo. But look at the fluid. Look at the leg there of Mewtwo, and look at the droplets on his collar here, on his forehead. The fluid simulation in general in this movie is pretty bad. And there's a general sort of theme going through this movie in terms of the animation quality, not the rendering of itself. The images as a still frame. I mean, look at this still image here. The quality of the skin of Mewtwo. This looks amazing, I think. The lighting is on point. You get the nice specular maps, the texture resolution, the model quality. This is what I was curious about watching the movie from the start. 3D models of the Pokemon just realized in this very high fidelity. I am personally not a fan of how they did the Pokemon in Detective Pikachu. I think some of them were kind of creepy. Some of them looked alright. Pikachu looked, I don't know, plain? Yeah, I guess that's what he would look like. Maybe it's just because this looks more 3D and I'm like, ooh, nice 3D. But I like the looks of this. Now, one thing that works to the detriment of a 3D movie rather than an animated anime movie is the mouth flaps. Since this movie is made for Japanese spoken language, if you watch it with the English dub, to me it becomes instantly obvious that things just don't line up.
Beautiful. Everything clean and natural.
Pristine, untouched.
だけどこれだけなんもないと。
綺麗さっぱり。
Which is a shame, because I still think that anime dubs for Pokemon, maybe it's part nostalgia as well, although if I were talking purely nostalgia, then I would watch it dubbed in Swedish, which I do not like. I swapped over to Japanese just to check the lip sync, and it does hold up in Japanese. But in English, because it's actually lip syncing and forming syllables with the lips, and not just going ba 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 ba, it becomes very apparent that it does not line up. However, in spite of that, I will say that the voice acting in general throughout, because obviously this is the first group of characters, so we have Brock, we have Misty, we have Ash, we have Professor Oak as the narrator.
This young man is Ash from Pallet Town.
And all of these voices, I think, are spot on. The character design here, I mean, look at this trio. Look at this now, or quintuplet. It's just nice looking. All of this looks really great, and I love the way the Pokemon themselves look. Pikachu has like a little peach fuzzy kind of thing going on. The fur, I think, is really well done, and the hair, as far as anime kind of crazy like chunky hair goes, I think it looks really good. Where it does fall apart for me personally is the animation movement. I think the main issue is that there's just not enough weight to the characters. Look at how they're moving here in the scene. You can see that everything is very like pose to pose. There's not a lot of follow through, and a lot of the time body parts are fully stationary, which is the number one sort of faux pas when it comes to 3D animation. In 2D animation that works because you have a drawing, you have anime, that's the style of anime. But when you have a rigged 3D character, because you have this sort of sense of physical space and movement, and it becomes that much more real, at least in terms of the movement of a character and the physics, because physics are still a thing that's real, that should exist even within a movie. You can break it if you do it deliberately, but when you're breaking physics unintentionally, it just looks wrong. It just feels like Saturday morning Mickey Mouse Funhouse kind of budget 3D animation. No, I don't think this is a deal breaker. It's just something that stands out to me specifically, I guess, because I'm looking at the animation from the animator perspective, and I don't think that this is something that probably will bother most people. So it's a nitpicky thing from my point of view, but I would still like to talk about movies like this in a little bit more of a technical, analytical sense, even if it's just an off the top of my head, unscripted video like this. These are things that I notice and think about when I watch the movies, and I want to point them out, just for fun. The fights look cool, I think, personally, and the effects of the attacks that they do to each other, especially seeing those things realized in a more, not necessarily realistic sense, but in a more fleshed out sense than just having a static 3D model go boop, and then a foot appears on the other side for a kick. It's interesting to see them actually do the animations in a 3D animated space and not just in the anime. So I did enjoy that quite a lot. The smoke simulations, great. The lighting and the shading work in this movie in general, spot on. Like really, really good. I would love like a 4K version of this and just grab a bunch of screenshots and have them as background wallpapers for my computer, because it's lovely, it's beautiful. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I think because of what the characters are doing and which characters they are, and the voice quality work of the voice actors, it still held the charm for me, man. Like at towards the end, if you don't know, spoilers again for the ending, towards the end when Ash dies for a bit, still made me tear up, gotta admit. it still gets there, you know? It still has that. It still has that. The only thing I would like to see changed, honestly, if they're doing, let's say, the power of one, they're doing the second movie with Lugia. If they were to do this treatment, I would love to see more cartoony animation, more over-the-top animation. A lot of the animation, they have key poses. There's poses of Ash jumping around doing his I win kind of thing. There are extreme poses, but the rest of the animation style doesn't back that up. It doesn't suit that in the same sense. So it doesn't feel cartoony throughout. It feels as though it's trying to be realistic-ish, but failing kind of. And then also there's just sort of thrown in cartoon poses because it is a cartoon anime, so we should have those. So the typical anime expressions and sound effects, I did miss. That was something that consistently stuck with me as absent from this. Although...
Let's gaze upon sun-drenched seas and eat my famous jelly donuts.
These donuts are great. Jelly-filled are my favorite.
Nice. Everything kind of has like a plastic vinyl feel. And this is it's a tight line to walk, because usually when you say something looks plasticky, when you're talking about 3D, that's client speak for bad. When a client doesn't know how to express themselves in terms of 3D, it looks plasticky, which is just basically bad shading, potentially bad lighting, but usually it's down to the shaders. Looking plasticky or vinyl-y can be a very bad thing if you do it unintentionally, but I think it was a stylistic choice for this movie, and I find that it really, really works. It almost makes it look like toys come alive, sort of like the same texture that Woody has to his face, or that Buzz has to his cap and skin. That type of plastic vinyl kind of feeling to everything, and I really like that. I think that fits perfectly with this type of 2D to 3D conversion of, especially of anime like this, because it's not supposed to look photorealistic. It's supposed to look cartoony. Oh, one thing that stood out to me was when Charizard does his flamethrower, he gets a really, really large bubble in his neck that travels up his throat. That wasn't in the anime, right? Like, he just shot fire. And I don't think any other Pokemon in this movie has like a physical reaction to their attacks, other than like powering through, shooting, whatever. But it just looks really bizarre to me. It happens 2 or 3 times, I think, throughout the movie, and it caught me off guard every time because it looks so weird. If you know 3D, it looks like you've taken a lattice and just sort of dragged it out, and then you just pull the lattice up so that the whole model just sort of bulges and goes up, and then fire comes out. I get what they're trying to go for. It's just very extreme, and this is another case of that sort of cartoony versus not cartoony. That effect could totally work, but you have to do that consistently. You have to have everything else has to be equally cartoony. If you're gonna do that, then everything has to be sort of rubbery and bouncy. And I would have greatly preferred that. It's weird to mix those two styles. The penultimate scene, the climax of the movie, is everyone crying, and the tears on their faces didn't move perfectly with their faces. They sort of, I think they've done a separate fluid simulation and put that onto the characters. Like, they've had like a fluid container or a fluid emitter underneath the eyes, and then like a container around the eyes. So it doesn't have enough resolution to sort of fit perfectly onto their faces. And I don't know if that's a stylistic choice to make it look like chunky water from anime, which would be good, but to me it just reads as low quality water, because that is what low quality fluid simulations look like. It gets sort of chunky and doesn't interact properly. Again, a physics thing. Not all of the animation was bad though. There are little bits and pieces that I really, really enjoy. Like right here, you can see that as Ash is running up the stairs, he stumbles, and I always appreciate it when animators go through and do that, because it takes so long to do that. but it adds a lot of humanity to a character. There's a great moment in Kung Fu Panda where Po stutters a bit when he's getting all excited, and he stutters a bit, and I don't know this at all, but when I watch that, it gives me this feeling of, I think Jack Black just stumbled over his words in the recording booth, and they just kept that take because it was an endearing character trait that humanizes Po in that case.
So you're saying if I teach, I'll be able to do cool stuff like that?
No.
So I like that. I love that they added things like that in. There's a few moments that I even find better than the anime, honestly. So I don't want to go on for too long. I already have. I'm sorry. It's hard to concisely speak about these things, especially when you don't script it out. It's a Netflix original, so if you have Netflix, wherever you are, it should be around. Let me know what you think, eh? I'm just gonna say, keep an eye on the animation, especially when they do a quick motion and then just sort of stop. Hopefully it doesn't bug you as much as it bugs me. Maybe watch it in Japanese. If you can stand the subtitles, maybe watch it in Japanese. Other than that, good movie. Go watch it. The proportions are spot on. Everyone looks great. The proportions of the humans, the proportions of the Pokemon, scales of everything look great. The lighting, smoking, thunder, hair, all of that stuff, perfect. Lighting, really nice, really good. I'm gonna say, oh shit, do I have to give it a rating? I'll rate it as a remake. 7 out of 10, but as a 3D animation on its own, 5 out of 11. Okay, that's gonna be it. I'm gonna go now. Bye! Thank you for watching.
What transpired here I will always remember, but perhaps for you, these events are best forgotten.